Hey, everybody, June has come and gone. Here we sit in July, and what we have on our hands appears to be the first sign of the new market that we have here in Ocean City. And you'll see what I mean about that here in a second as we digest and dig into every little detail. Here we go. All right, and we are trying a new feature here in Zoom featuring my face, and it's freaking me out a little bit right on top of the slide. So if this is too distracting, let me know, but I kind of like it. So if this is your first one of these videos, we start with where we came from. We go into the actual charts, the current data in June, talk about the trends, and then we are going to talk about forecasting. What can you expect going forward? So with that out of the way, we're going to dive right in. So mortgage rates is the big thing on everybody's mind, and they have changed a lot, not just in 2022, but even over the past month. They've gone up almost a full percentage point from 5.25 up to about 6. Now, they have dipped down a hair, but that I believe is going to be temporary. The banks are playing games now, trying to figure out the threshold of pain for people where they're still going to have some semblance of mortgage demand. They need to make the profits, they need to make their money, but they also don't want to tighten it too much or loosen it too much either way. So I do expect that that's going to be the norm for the time being. I'll go into that here in a minute, but inventory. And this is one thing I want to take a quick pause on and really touch on. So yes, inventory is up about 10% from where we were last month. Personally, I'm not sure if you recall, I thought that it would have gone the other way. I thought that we would have dwindled through June, again in July, but I was flat out wrong. And in digging in, and I'm not trying to justify it, but a lot of that 10%, we're talking 20 properties. I can think of at least 7 off the top of my head that I scrolled through today, where we're talking that new listings came in the month of June, not that they're reaching for an additional 5, 10, 15, 20% above their comp value and what the market value I believe would be, but we're talking 50+%. We have people who are taking some absolute moonshots right now. So I do think that that makes up a portion of that inventory increase. And I do expect that, we're going to see sellers really having a hard time adjusting here. We went from naming a number for almost 2 years to the fact where we now actually have to rely on comps. We have to do appraised value. So there's going to be a period of time over the next 60 to 90 plus days where I think the market is going to push back on sellers to say, no, you can't ask for 10% more than your neighbor who just sold anymore. That's not how this works. So that is a very interesting thing I'm going to keep an eye on. Low days on market is still holding steady, right? Despite the people taking their moonshots, they're not selling. So that doesn't go against days on market until they sell, if they ever do. So the ones who are serious about selling are listing at reasonable prices. They are selling very quickly. So we're still seeing extremely low DOM. Now, prices. Here's where, again, the conversation can get a little bit twisted. What we have going on now is price deceleration. That doesn't mean prices are going down. I covered this last week, but they are going to start shrinking. You're still going to see positive year-over-year change. We have condos up 15% year-over-year, single family up 28%. We're going to see those still being in double digits, but they're going to start to decrease simply as that price acceleration that was skyrocketing starts to level out here and gets to something that used to be normal. We're talking 2 to 3% appreciation per year, which is what's expected over the coming years by many, many experts. So let's look at some actual charts. So highlighted in blue are all of the months of June for the past 3 years, really, including current 2022. And again, what you'll see here between pending sales on this chart, which is how many properties went under contract in a given month, versus the next chart, which is going to be closed sales, how many actually closed in that month. They're going to track very, very closely if you just focus on the blue. So the big difference, again, obviously here in 2020 is our huge outlier. Post-COVID, the activity was absolutely insane. As inventory dropped substantially, we get down towards June 2021, where we got back in line with pre-COVID world of 2019 in terms of activity and pending properties. Now we have our first real decrease, and that is explained, in my personal opinion, by the complete lack of inventory, right? We're still sitting at 220 odd properties in total. If you're going to be putting roughly 50 of them under contract each and every month. That's pretty darn good. So looking at closed sales, again, you're going to see fairly similar, a little bit different just because timelines change. A lot of new construction was in here over 2020 and 2021, can skew things a little bit. But once again, we do have a decrease in closed sales, but we're still looking at about 50 closed sales per month. So still very strong activity, a lot slower than what everybody's used to. And I think everyone's going to be able to catch their breath a little bit going forward. But let's take a look at what I think is going to be an interesting thing to track. Just as things normalize, I think this is going to be a metric I want you to pay attention to. That does get talked about on a national scale, but again, national inventory means nothing to each individual market. So months of inventory basically means, hey, if we were to sell out of all of the inventory we have, how long would it take? And there's a lot of math that goes into that, but basically an average neutral market is 6 months of inventory. As you can see, since I started tracking this personally, just because the data was not clean from where I was getting it from before, back in September, we haven't even come close, but we are trending upwards towards that with single family homes. Now, I would expect that trend to continue. A lot of the single family homes that we have here are very, very expensive. They are huge. A lot of them are new. We're talking multiple seven figures. So gone are the days where you're seeing the average single family price around 800,000. And as your price point increases to the degree that it has, they are going to tend to sit on market a little bit longer. There's only so many people who can afford to make that purchase. So I do anticipate that this is going to start to level out closer towards our neutral market. Now, in terms of prices, that's not necessarily reflecting here. And again, there's a reason for that. Despite the price increase, that's not saying that all else equal prices are leveling out. A huge driver to this is the fact that the average price on an individual single family home, a bigger single family home, a newer single family home, is astronomically higher than it's ever been. So that's construction costs, that's demand, that's a whole lot of things looped in there. So even as we see our months of inventory leveling out towards 6, I wouldn't anticipate that this is going to slow down for single family homes. Different story for condos. But days on market, again, here we have things leveling out, still very, very low, around 40 days. I don't anticipate that changing anytime soon. We should eventually, once we hit balance, start to see that creep back in toward the 50s, but I think we're several months out from that. Now for condos. So condos, we can see things trending up here a little bit. Still very, very far below our neutral market of 6 months of inventory. Now, here's where I want to, again, pause and take a minute. We've seen a consistent month over month increase in average sale price across the board, right? Since COVID came to be. What we have here, and if you're looking at a macro level from a high level bird's eye view, whatever you want to call it, it looks like things have leveled out. Last month, we did have a spike, right? That was kind of a freak thing that happened based on 1 month of data versus a low month of data from 12 months ago, and just how that plays into this calculation. So we took a 0.2% step back. That doesn't mean anything to me. That doesn't scare me off. But I do think there's some truth here into the flattening of this curve. So I would anticipate that, again, we're reaching our new equilibrium here. Unless inventory comes in bulk to the market, or buyers on the whole completely balk at everything that's going on, I believe we have achieved a new normal. So with that said, again, our days on market with condos, you can see what I mean here. This is trending down continually. So where we saw the single family starting to creep up a little bit, not to a huge degree, we are trending down consistently down towards 35 days. So the demand for condos is always going to be there. And as single family homes continue to get out of reach for so many people, they're going to grab onto what they can, and that is the condo sector. So the demand for condos is going to stay very strong. But again, I think just the prices people are asking for right now, especially with the newer listings, are astronomical and out of touch. So we are seeing the inventory in the condo world build. So now for the forecasting part, my favorite. Where are we going? From a mortgage rate standpoint, this is a very, very touch and go situation. I do not have a crystal ball. Nobody does. But the big hairy bear that the Fed is trying to tackle is inflation. And you can read a million different opinions on whether they even have the power to do that, if they're doing the right thing, if they're too late, if they're not going hard enough. I want you to block all of that out for the time being. So with mortgage rates, there's a phrase going around right now in the real estate industry that cracks me up a little bit. And it is to date the rate, marry the house. So I'm going to unpack that here for you. With rates, we got so accustomed to sub-3 rates for the past few years that 6% feels like an absolute slap in the face. And do not hear that as me saying, oh, it's no big deal. It's a huge change. It's adding hundreds, if not thousands of dollars onto mortgage payments for the same priced home. So we're in a very, very different situation than we were in even 8 months ago. So where we came from was it was impossible to even buy a house. You could put in offers on 5, 10, 15, 20 properties, lose them all to cash buyers, to people paying 100,000 over asking, whatever the case is, right? You had to give your kidney and your firstborn to have a chance. And then boom, that's great. At least we got it at a low rate. Now we have a completely flipped script. Now the competition to get on some of these properties is a lot lower. You're not having to worry about getting down here 2 hours after it lists, paying substantially over asking. But the detractor here is that rate. So there are options out there, and I want to talk about 2 of them here briefly. So one being the fact that you can always refinance. That's not something you ever want to go in stretching your budget, stretching your financial limits, and hoping that you'll be able to refinance 1, 2, 3 years down the road. That is a losing play. I would never recommend taking on that sort of risk if you cannot financially afford it. The second path, outside of waiting for the rates to come down to refinance, would be the ugly ARM loans, the adjustable rate mortgages. And that is something that scares me to death, did anyway, until I learned a little bit more about it. So if you're not familiar with what happened back in the crisis of 07 and 08, the ARM loans were everybody's best friend. And all of a sudden, people got stuck in those as the rates continued to climb. They went underwater. They had to sell. The rest is history. So with what's called a 5-1 ARM, let's say you wanted to make a purchase, you plan to sell or refinance within the next 5 years, you can lock in a roughly 4.5% rate in some cases before that rate can adjust. There are a lot of stipulations to this one, so don't just take my word for it. You'll want to touch base with a lender on this. But my point being, if you're dating the rate, right, the rate is something that can change. It can get better, it can get worse. But what you have the opportunity to do now is to actually be selective about the home that you want. You can find the right one and let the rate piece get under control in the coming years. Again, it's not for everybody. It's not a strategy I would recommend that everybody consider, but I do want to float that out there as a possibility in case these rates do stick around for longer than anticipated. Now, as far as inflation, right? When that gets under control in the past, across history, mortgage rates have typically come down in line with that. And there are investment reasons behind that. Again, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole in this video, but once inflation's under control, which hopefully is 1 to 2 years away, it may take a little bit longer. There is a broad expectation that mortgage rates will come back down as well. So there will be the opportunity to refinance should that be appealing to you. Now for inventory, things in June started off a little bit sluggish. I was a little bit concerned, but things picked up very, very quickly. And honestly, once again, I'm going to own this, right? I thought we would have seen inventory shrink. I did not anticipate having so many people trying to sell at either moonshot numbers or mandating that they stay in the property until, mid-September, mid-October, whatever the case is. But guess what? None of those are under contract. None of those are selling. So it's adding inventory, but it's not really inventory, if that makes sense. So with that said, and seeing that trend, I'm adjusting my forecast here. And I do think we're going to go up another 10% by the end of August as more people start to enjoy the summer, start to forecast their own lives out past this summer and make decisions accordingly. So with prices, again, I don't expect prices to fall. I'm going to get that one right out of the way in bold here. So it looks like, again, condos are starting to level out. Single families, there's no real slowdown in sight. But there's still demand here, right? Despite the rates, despite everything going on, there's still properties going under contract every single day of the week. So as long as that continues, there is going to be demand to meet the sellers where they currently are, for at least the ones who are serious about selling. The other ones need a wake-up call. Now, for days on market, again, I would anticipate over the next few months, they should stay roughly flat. So with all of that said, if you have any questions, you can contact me. Any of these, just point that way, any of these ways, reach out directly. You can drop them down below in the comments, whatever's best for you. I'm here to help. I'm here to serve and to help you make confident decisions. I appreciate you hanging out with me today and checking out this video, and I will see you on the next one.